Eu canto o samba porque sou assim, eu me sinto contente. Eu vou ao samba porque longe dele eu não posso viver. Com ele eu tenho de fato uma velha intimidade. Se fico sozinho.
Collaborative law came about because I was very unhappy with my litigation practice. I hated my litigation practice. I hated to go to work in the morning. I have this image that I've shared with people that back in the old days when I was a kid, there were cowboy movies, and the cowboy used to come back to his shack in the evening, and he'd put a stick in the door with his hat on it to make sure no one shot at it before he went in the shack. And that was a feeling I had when I'd go to work in the morning, that something was you're going to have some needs to crank up some affidavits or something you didn't expect to have happen, and all of a sudden you're going to be into some furor. So I was just saying, I'm going to get out of the practice of law. I was ready to quit. So I started taking some courses over at the U to see what some other profession. And then I thought, you know, if I'm willing to quit the practice of law, maybe there's some way to do it outrageously, that where I can do what I like to do and not do what I don't like to do, still practice law. So I started experimenting with that. I tried 2 or 3 different approaches that didn't work, and the closest thing was I had another compatriot. She was a lawyer that I got along with real well. We communicated real well, and I thought, you know, if clients would come to each of us, well, we could sit around a table and work it out. We had no agreement at that time about getting out of the case if it didn't settle. So we settled about a dozen cases that way, very successfully, very good feeling. Then we got that you always have that test case that shows up, the people that are your great teachers show up, and this couple was very amenable in the first session, and after this first session, something happened between sessions where they were all of a sudden fighting with each other, shouting at each other, tearing each other apart. And so the working around the table stopped working. The other lawyer and I didn't have sense enough to get out of the case because we didn't have any agreement on that. So we took that case to trial, and it was horrible. It was one of those cases where all the dirty tricks in the world show up. And you start thinking, is this the client or is this the other lawyer that's doing this? And we're trying to kind of sort that out, you know. And basically what it did was it destroyed our relationship, even though we didn't think anything would. We lost some of our trust level. And the great learning for me was, the aha moment for me, the epiphany was, if you're a settlement lawyer, you got to get out of the case if it doesn't settle and turn it over to the trial lawyers. And what came to mind then was the traditional English solicitor barrister model, where the solicitors work up the cases and the barristers try them. So the solicitors don't go to court, traditionally at least. So that was a tremendous moment for me, where I said, aha, that's the way to do it. And on January 1 of 1990, I declared myself a collaborative lawyer. Now, there weren't any other ones. So that said, oh, I better find some other ones. So that started getting me involved with trying to enroll some other people locally in doing that. And what the remarkable thing was, people started hearing about this. People started, it's sort of like the tuning fork. You hit a tuning fork and it vibrates, and over here there's a tuning fork. They start vibrating when they get to the same frequency. And I think that's what happened with collaborative law, and it started spreading around the country and around the world. My life is a joy after that. Now I practice in my home for the last 10 years. I office in my home. I come to the Collaborative Alliance Center for conferences. And it's just helping people. And the thing that's different, the main thing that's different is, you know, our litigation, the responsibility and the focus of promoting and accomplishing something are with the lawyer. With collaborative law, the focus is on the clients, and you're there to help the clients, but you're not taking it on. And every so often now I see lawyers, particularly young lawyers who are in collaborative law, who have not made that shift totally. So they're still hanging on to the fact that they've got to make this happen. They've got to get the result that their client wants. And I tell them, pay attention to your body feelings. When I'm doing that, all of a sudden I notice that my stomach is tightening up. And that's a signal to me to back off and be supportive of what's going on, but not to try to make my thing happen with them. And they're still struggling, the young lawyers who are still hanging on are struggling with that same pain and suffering almost, when they can't get their result to happen. It's very gratifying to see that something is making law better, that something is helping people. It's like, from my Buddhist background, it's like everything you do is for the benefit of all sentient beings. And that's exactly what's happening with the collaborative law. You're putting it out there for the benefit of all sentient beings. It may not reach them, but you're putting it out there for that purpose.
So, hi, Stu.
Hello there.
It's wonderful to see you.
Oh, it's great to see you. Yeah. I wasn't sure we were going to show up but we all on the same wavelength. Bing, bing, bing. Here we are.
Yes. So thank you for accepting that proposal to have a conversation. I'm calling this,
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm calling this like a tea time conversation. So I have a tea. I have a tea with me?
Yes, I have a, Martha mixes up a beautiful fruit drink every morning.
Nice.
All kinds of things. Maybe 20 different things in it. So this is what I'm drinking.
So cheers. So I'm having these conversations with different people from different activities, backgrounds,
That's wonderful.
ages.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, just to think about together, just to have a public conversation, because I couldn't have you all by my own. It would be too selfish. So I want to make other people to participate of our conversation today. So that's the proposal.
That's wonderful. I'd love to talk to everybody. What the heck? It's all open.
Yeah. So I think the idea is there's not a line, just talk of whatever you're doing, what we are thinking, or to reflect, to see how we are going through all of that's happening. So just to check how are you doing and exchange some ideas.
Well, what I'm learning is to just be and not have to figure it out, to go with what's going on, just to be with it without trying to figure it out or trying to plan it or trying to figure out how it's going to work. It's more, I would call it a surrendering to the will.
Mm-hmm. To the will.
It's just surrendering to what is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And not trying to identify it or bless it or you just bless it. I guess you bless it everything. But it's like not trying to figure, oh, this is what's happening. It's into loving it all, you know, in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
And you can get caught up in your thinking about, oh, I shouldn't be doing that, but shouldn't be blah, blah, blah. But
Mm-hmm.
it's a background. It's a background. And it reminds me of when you watch a movie,
Mm-hmm.
and in the background of the movie, there's music.
Yes.
And sometimes you don't hear the music until you see the credits at the end. They played that, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just in the background.
That's so right. Yes.
And
Yes.
so it's sort of like that love is in the background. Love is the silent music that covers everything. And it's just there, and you don't necessarily know it's there.
Wow. Okay, Stu, thank you very much. You said everything, so it's done. Oh my God. Yes, that's
Yeah. And then
so
every so
true.
often, I will stop and hear it. And so when I look at you and be with you, I can then, it comes out into noticing.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes back to the background again when we talk. But it's at the same time, I can be aware of how much I love you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How much I love everybody. And then I can go back into the background. But when I came to Brazil, I could not initially handle the love that was expressed by you guys. I had to go back up to the room and decompress because I could not handle the powerful expression of love. And when I was in India, I got very, very sick one day. I couldn't move from my room. You're up in the mountains in the Himalayas at this Hindu center. And I was been expressing it was just a beautiful place up by the Ganges in the jungle. And I was very active, been there all of the one day, I couldn't move from my bed. And one of the people heard about it, and one of the workers there at the place, beautiful soul, he came into the room, my room, with a plate of cookies. I started crying. I couldn't handle. It was total unconditional love. And I had no blocks to it, which I was having in Brazil. I was totally undefended. I could not handle it. I was just totally open. I had never experienced that before, and I could not. That indicated how much we put blocks on our love. And all of a sudden, I was open. And it was unbelievable. I was like nothing and everything. Okay, okay.
Oh my God. Yes, it's
But
so,
one thing I got there is when the understanding came was I realized how often people get sick because they get love. You see people who go to hospitals because they get love. And we shouldn't have to do that. We shouldn't have to get sick to get love.
oh my God. Yeah, that should be, that's so strange when we think about that we are not ready for love, right? That we're not prepared, that can be
That's right.
love can be a kind
Yes.
of
And we set up blocks. We set up blocks to love, to receive it. And so we're particularly receptacle to that in the United States, I think. And what I experienced in Brazil with your people and with other people there, much more open to loving, the expression of love. And I think in some ways that's also true in Italy. They're more expressive. And it's interesting that both in Italy and Brazil, that collaboration has taken on more because it's more receptive to that kind of openness of love. And we're experiencing that at different levels of culture in the world with collaboration. People are more attracted to it from litigation. But some countries are more open because they're more open to the possibility of expressing love. So when you express love, you're invited. You invite it. And so one of the important things that I see for collaborative professionals, and the United States is a good test because we're not used to love, expressing love. So I'm saying that the paradigm shift is a way, hopefully, to create that background of love. You don't have to express it, but you can transmit it. And so if we have a team where everybody in the team has that background love as they work with the couple, doing everything else not just doing that, but that's the background music.
mm-hmm.
And then you are working with the couple, and the couple, in addition to what you're working with, are receiving this transmission. So they begin to rise up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You don't teach them. You don't talk to this. In my taking, you don't talk about this to them. You're just sending it. It's like what you do with your kids.
Mm-hmm.
You don't explain what you're doing when you're loving them.
Mm-hmm.
You just do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I was listening to you and thinking about the sun irradiation. You don't think about, but you feel the warmth of the sun. So it's a way.
Exactly. And there's a physical sun and a spiritual sun.
Yeah, and it's so incredible you're talking about that, because I was thinking when you came to Brazil, I remember you sent it to us a text about the untethered path to the ultimate paradigm shift. Sorry, my English is terrible. Remember that? The untethered path to the ultimate paradigm shift. You sent it to us, a text about that paradigm shift.
Oh.
And remember that about the untethered soul? I don't know if I'm saying that word correctly.
No, but I don't remember what I say at a particular time, you know.
Yeah,
So
it's that. I'm gonna write this to you. Untethered soul.
I'll probably deny I ever said anything like this in the but you have a recording now.
That's fine, but the thing is that I remember that I thought that we weren't ready to listen to you by that time. The feeling I had is that we wouldn't understand what you're talking about. Remember?
Oh, I remember. This is don't do that. Don't do
I
this.
said, no, people are not ready to listen to that. Please tell the beginning, how you started, be very basic. We are gonna get there, but we are not there yet. Remember that? We talked about that?
Yes.
So now I'm so happy that you started our conversation with that, because I think we are in a totally different moment right now. And I think we are ready to listen to you, to listen to that.
I had completely forgotten about that, but I think I remember then that I had to pay attention to what you said, because, oh, yeah, that's right, you're right. You have to be careful.
Yeah, well, most of the people that were there in that first Congress didn't know anything about collaborative practice. There were people that were trained, of course there were, but we were in the very first baby steps, you know. And I said, you got the idea, you were perfect, and I didn't even know what was going on with you, with that all loving thing that you said. But now I think it's time for us maybe to get more aware of this.
You know, I don't talk like this in my life. I'm very careful. I don't talk like I'm saying things to you here that are just because I feel open with you and open to share it with whoever hears it. But I don't do that here. The guru that was in India, you know, they said you have to be selective. You have to be careful. So like when you were at the training, you know, I had no idea who you were, where people were at, because I'm not in the United States. I would never, ever do that. Mm-hmm. I would never, ever do that at a training. Mm-hmm. Never propose that kind of stuff. So you were saying, oh my God, no, no, that's too much. You turn people off, you know, and you can, and in the United States, you turn people off. And at some particular times, you can get killed by doing that. I've known people who have. Mm-hmm. Martin Luther King. Mm-hmm. Jesus. Whatever. No, you get too mouthy. Too mouthy, too soon. So don't show this to anybody.
Okay. Well, I was reading again. I read by then in 2017, and I was reading again. I remember that I didn't understand by then what you're talking about. And now it's like, oh my God, you know, this is like, this is so, I don't even know how to name it. This is so essential, so important. I hope that Stu will talk. Let's hear now. We are ready to hear.
That's exactly what happens. So a perfect example of that is Christ's teachings. You actually listen to what Christ said, and people don't understand it. When it says, "I and my Father are one," what? What do you mean, my Father and I are one? You know, when you look at it from the dualistic standpoint, it doesn't make any sense at all. So all of a sudden, you see something differently because you're at a different place with it. And more open to hear it. It's amazing. There's an interesting thing in Buddhism that after years after Buddha had died, the teachers would get some crazy idea, open, and say, people are not ready for this. So they would seed it into the future. And several hundred years later, Buddhist specialists would find it. They'd actually physically find it. And then it was because they were ready for it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's you. That's what happened there, and that's that happened to you when you decided stop doing litigation, and people in the first time said, "Oh my God, you're telling a lawyer not to go to the court. You're denying the essence of being a lawyer." And I had experienced that when I first started talking about collaborative practices here in Brazil. People would have this, like, what? And then now, when I go to most of the people to talk about that, I see like bright eyes. People are like, yes, oh my God. This is like a 5-year experience. You see the change. It's concrete. You can touch. It's very concrete. It's very true. You see in people's faces that we are making a big movement. And I'm happy that we are.
You can actually see people's faces change sometimes, can't you?
Sure. But at the beginning, at the first time, the majority of the public were at the whole time like this. And now they are already at the first words, they are already understanding. So what I'm saying is that we are testimony, this paradigm shift in our life. It's not 100 years from now. We are seeing when you started in February 1990 and where we are today, we are having that opportunity to see the paradigm shift happening in front of us.
And nothing much happened for quite a while after 1990. For that very reason, there was a period. Well, I wasn't trying to do anything. I wasn't trying to spread it. I was taking care of myself.
Mm-hmm.
I was selfish.
Yes. Well, take care of yourself first. Yes. That's the first thing. Take care of yourself. You have to breathe. You have to, right?
And so one of the mistakes I did, at the beginning, I was so excited about it that I made a talk to the family law lawyers in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and everybody, Uh, it was terrible.
Of course.
I only did that once.
Yeah.
And people would say, well, we always do. We always try to settle our cases. What's the big deal? You know.
I understand. I've experienced that here when I started talking about collaborative law to people, and they were saying, "Oh, we already do that. We know," and oh, that's not going to work, or you're too romantic, or any kinds of known skeptical feelings about that.
One of the learnings for me is you just do it. I've said that if I had proposed this to a board of directors, and if I proposed collaborative law to a board of directors, it's a brand new thing, it would never have happened.
Yeah, of course.
Because it would only take maybe one or two people to say, oh, think of the liability or think of the ethical problem, and everything would go, oh, all the energy would come out of it. So it's like when you get it, sometimes you just have to do it, and just do it if it feels right.
Yeah, I was hearing about that yesterday with a theater director, and very famous, very important here in Brazil, and he was talking about that. An actor came to him and said, "Is that good? The perform I did, it's good." And the director said, "Never ask someone else if your work is good. Ask yourself." Ask yourself. Don't put outside the quality of your work. Don't expect someone to allow you and say, "Hey, that's good." You have to answer that.
Beautiful, beautiful advice. Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And
yeah.
It's what slows us down, because in the original state of the training in Brazil, people were in their duality. Duality is love and fear. And so we get caught up in the fear part. And you say, oh, that's a great idea. Oh, we can't do that. It would be unethical. Or think of the liability. You might get sued. Oh, all of a sudden people get caught up in their doubts. And so when you do it and demonstrate, then you become a model, because you're not waiting, as you said, for someone else to say, we approve.
Validate. Yeah.
You just do it. And that's what's beautiful about collaboration as a model for conflict resolution, because if you're doing it right, you're paying attention to your paradigm shift feeling. And what I noticed was people were beginning to shift back into only looking at marketing, or looking at different functions, how you should have your room, or how you should learn how to be compassionate, where if you just do it, you become compassionate. You don't have to learn how to do it.
It's a consequence.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Okay, I don't have anything more to say.
I was just going to finish because you said something that impressed me a lot about that feeling you had when you were in Brazil, that you have to go up to your room to recover because you felt that expression of love so intense. And I agree, and I understand what you're saying, and that's something that it's going to be very good to us Brazilians to hear that, because we need to be aware of that, to get conscious of that, because we face a lot of violence here too. I have a friend, Stu. His name is Dominic Barter. He works with nonviolent communication. He did a research last week, and he found out that the Brazilian police kill people, kill civilians, so much more, kills like in 30 days, kills the same number of people that Minnesota police killed in 20 years. So every 30 days, policemen in Rio de Janeiro kill every 30 days, what police in Minnesota kills every 20 years. So at the same time, we are these people with that kind of love, that are able to express love in such intense way, I agree with you, and I feel that too. I hear that energy. At the same time, we live so close to such the opposite, to such a violent reality. So it's kind of maybe trying to equilibrate things, maybe, but we need to get aware of that, of the violence and the love we are able to.
And you have to be careful. In other words, I had a beautiful saying by one of the Buddhist guys last week, Jack Kornfield, amazing teacher. I was listening to him. He said, you have to have all this love, all this kind, but you have to remember your Social Security number. It's like getting back to reality. And so there's a wonderful book by Ram Dass, a great teacher, wrote a book called Be Here Now, which is wonderful. Mm-hmm. And he said, he's got a woodcut pictures, Be Here Now, beautiful, beautiful book with a lot of woodcuts and lovely book. One of the pictures, woodcut pictures in the book, he shows a guy running down the aisle of a crowded church. And he's kind of a hippie kind of guy, and he's running down the aisle and he's yelling, listen to the words of this hymn, folks, listen to the words of this hymn. And Ram Dass says, don't do that. Don't do that. You'll get jerked.
Mm-hmm.
You'll get, that's not the way you do it, and you open yourself up and you do it spontaneously and carefully. Mm-hmm. And I am not doing that here because I don't know why I'm not doing it now. I have no idea why. You make me do this, so it's your fault.
Okay, I accept. Oh, Stu, this is so good to be in touch with you, to talk to you, to have you close. See?
Okay, I think that's enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too. I have so much. I mean, my heart is really beating fast. Thank you very much. I think we had a beautiful, beautiful time. Beautiful conversation. Thank you so much. Send love and kisses to Martha wonderful, and to everybody.
Wonderful. Stay safe. You guys stay safe and crank it back if you have to, be careful. Be careful because there are those other sides. And, both Christ and Martin Luther King, all the Kennedys, make people get killed. People get, all the people you talk about, that's beginning to come out. I think it's wonderful being able to see what's happened and how we have to reform the police side and not be so there's a lot of good people there too, and we need to
Sure.
find some way to separate that and keep,
Oh, yeah.
you know,
Yeah, well, I'm not
you know,
blaming apart.
my
That's
pen.
all right. I don't have my pen. Oh, yes. Don't. I didn't get mine, so no.
Okay,
Stu,
bye-bye.
I love you.
I love you too.
Take care,
Be
okay?
there, say hi to everybody. Give them my
Yes.
love. Carefully,
Bye, Stu.
carefully.
Yes, we will. We all will. Thank you very much. See you
Bye-bye.
next month in our next
We'll
meeting.
be in, okay, yeah, see you next month.
Okay? Bye, Stu.